I'm Russ Rapp, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the Enneagram as it relates to non-duality. And I'm going to read some from this book called 9 Lenses of the World, The Enneagram Perspective by Jerome Wagner, PhD. So that's the book. And just to give you an idea, real quick, if you're not familiar with the Enneagram, it's 9 personality types. There's the symbol right there. I'm not going to get into all the details of that at this point, but full disclosure, I identify as a type 5, and you may be thinking, how is this, or why is this guy identifying with the personality type? Isn't he pure awareness or some sort of non-dual master that, has shed his former life of a personality? And that's not really how it works. So, what is this? Oh, I've got a airline ticket receipt. Anyway, on the page paradigm shifts. So here we go. So let's get into the book here. So we're going to I'm going to highlight type 5, and the reason behind that is because I think when we talk about non-duality, it is really oftentimes an intellectual discussion. So it's talking about an understanding of the mind, and the whole pursuit is towards truth or wisdom to find out what is real and essentially what is unreal. And so that's the direction that we're headed when we're going down the path of trying to find the truth behind non-duality. And so I'm going to read a section of the type 5 in this book, and it's going to be on page somewhere here. Where was it? I had this all laid out and then I forgot what page it's on. Okay, I'm getting there. It is on page 337. Okay. So, lens 5, they're a perspective of wisdom. The paradigm, attitude, or belief that aligns 5s with reality is the correct viewing of wisdom, which realizes that true understanding comes from experience, participation, involvement, interaction with real people and real things. Integral knowledge comes from body, emotion, mind, spirit, not just from the cerebral cortex. The omniscience that 5s experience in their essential nature is arrived at through identifying with the empty space in their field of awareness. That is, by identifying their true selves with their inner observer or fair witness. That is what their resourceful paradigm teaches them. In the distorting version of their perspective, 5s identify with the theories and categories their mind constructs, and then further limit their vision by identifying with the contents that enter their categories. This identification with partial reality provides them with only illusory omniscience. Also, like other types, 5s can over-identify with their strengths, which in their case means over-identifying with their observing position and exaggerating their detachment. So I will continue to read here, but just to point out, we all have every type within us, and so whether or not you identify as a type 5 is kind of irrelevant, because we all, in some sense, seek truth and seek what's real. And coming to the topic of non-duality, you're probably in that same boat, whether you are a type 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So continuing, unfortunately, this avenue of true wisdom is precisely the one 5s avoid. Emptiness, the state of no form, is an uncomfortable space for 5s to remain in, since they grow accustomed to their categories. Clinging to structures leads to rigidity and stagnation. So essentially, as we pursue the idea or the concept of non-duality, we try to fill it with our own concepts and ideas, and that's kind of the opposite direction of finding freedom or finding wisdom that the type 5s are pointing to. And so anytime you're trying to grasp this and make it something that you can believe in or understand, then it becomes kind of a mental idol. And when doing therapy or consultations, Ram Dass says, I empty my mind completely so that I am merely, if you will, a mirror. Since I have no game going on, there's nothing. All I'm doing is bringing myself to my center and focusing, just as if I were focusing on a candle flame. So this is the high side of the Fives paradigm. The low side of their style wants to come to the table armed with theories, interpretations, strategies, and answers. The maladaptive belief of the Five is that they don't have much to offer just in themselves, but what they do bring is their knowledge and explanations. When in doubt, the compulsive Five will reach for a book and withdraw, while the enlightened Five will reach for their essence and extend themselves to the essence of the other person. So ironic that I'm reading a book when it says that it's withdrawing into the compulsive side. So that's kind of some humor there. It's not really that funny, but it's a good book, and you can read about all the different other types. He does a good job of explaining it kind of in a more of a spiritual framework or reference. But just a few comments on what we just read, or what I just read, what we read together. Because we're all learning together through this whole life that we live. I think when it comes to type fives, or just this idea of non-duality where you want to become a non-person, essentially it becomes a battle of wills. It's your will versus the will of others, the will of life, the will of God. And so when we try to become nothing, when we try to collapse into ourselves and become this humble thing that has no wants or needs or desires, essentially you're playing the ego's game, the compulsive side of trying to restrict yourself. And what non-duality is pointing to is it's going all the way. It's not just cutting yourself down to some small thing and everything else outside of yourself has some level of importance more than yourself, because that's what can end up happening if you say, okay, well, I'm a non-person, but everyone else is a person. They're more important than me because I have to be humble. I have to act a certain way. But if you go all the way down to the emptiness, the grounding of the reality of who you are, your true self, you realize that nothing about you has to change. Everything is perfect as it is. And so this battle of wills, this fight that you have in your life kind of is still there but goes away, or the grounding of it is no longer there. And so instead of trying to essentially in college there was a time where I had my hair really long, and I didn't want to go out and hang out with people. I just wanted to read books and stuff. It was my aesthetic phase, as I like to call it. And essentially that was kind of saying that, my life doesn't have value. Other animals, the environment, other people, they have value. And it's kind of, essentially, if you get down to the root of it, is some form of self-hate that you have. And so love doesn't want you to have to be something other than exactly what you are. And so if you go all the way down, which you can never really reach, you'll realize that you are perfect in this moment. And the reason why I like talking about non-duality is because, I ventured through the desert of the real. What's another way of saying it in an interesting way? I've clad myself in all the mental jewelry that you would ever imagine. I've constructed towers of I don't know. You get what I'm saying? So Do you understand? The mind will never find the answer. It has trouble finding analogies, much less the ultimate truth. And so that's okay. Just sit with it in this moment. Just take this all in and see where it leads. Ask yourself, who are you? Who am I? What you see is not what you are. It's only a fragment of your identity. Your mind always wants to have activity. It always wants to have answers. It's always seeking, always searching. And so, in a sense, it's that uncomfortable silence that people try to avoid, that your mind doesn't like, whether it's by yourself or with people. So you fill it with ideas, concepts, activities, plans, goals, daydreams. But within all of that is the peaceful quiet that permeates all of reality. Even I feel like I have to speak to bring value to these videos, to explain things to you. There's all sorts of videos out there that are very thought-provoking, well laid out, well explained. And that's the goal. I mean, that's the idea behind it, but ultimately none of that matters. So if you want to reach for a book like 9 Lenses of the World by Dr. Wagner, that's great. And by the way, let's see, this was a flight to Portland. So, I didn't expect this video to go this long, but I'm enjoying this, so let's just keep going. If you've made it this far, I just want to say I really appreciate it. Some of these videos, you know, I hope you feel like you get something out of them, but if you don't, that's okay, because like I said earlier in the video, we want to fill it with these concepts and ideas, these mental frameworks, and that gives us comfort. We get security out of that, and that's fine. But it's not necessary, because it's really just building up a wall to close you off from who you are, which is everything. Because when you go all the way, you find that emptiness is fullness. All right, we are close to 15 minutes, so I should probably sign off here, but leave some comments. I appreciate that, and until next time, peace.